Going to talk more about social care. Have a watch of what Boris Johnson said outside number 10 Downing Street on his first day as PM.
My job is to protect you or your parents or grandparents from the fear of having to sell your home to pay for the costs of care. And so I am announcing now on the steps of Downing Street that we will fix the crisis in social care once and for all with a clear plan we have prepared to give every older person the dignity and security they deserve.
Let's talk now to Martin Green, Chief Executive at Care England. Hello to you, Mr. Green.
Hello there.
It doesn't look like we're going to get a fully rounded plan on social care and how it will be funded today. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think, Victoria, we have been waiting now for 32 years for the social care system to be reformed, and every single Prime Minister has made grandiose statements. But now is the time, particularly in the wake of the pandemic, where we have got to see a clear plan for social care that will take it into the future and make sure that it is sustainable. I think the pandemic's really showed the interface between health and social care, and it is completely ridiculous to spend time focusing on one bit of the system and ignoring the other.
I don't think it's coming today.
Well, I'm afraid if it's not coming today, it has to come soon. I mean, the Prime Minister was unequivocal in what he said in Downing Street. He said that he had a formulated plan. Well, let's put that plan out and let's start discussing it and let's move it forward to legislation. And if he had a plan, let's see the bones of it so that we can talk to him about how we can deliver it.
What would you like to see?
Well, I think we've got to see a revisioning of social care, so we've got to really understand what social care is about. I want to see a 10-year workforce strategy which aligns to the workforce strategy in the NHS. I want to see proper funding that will enable us to deliver high-quality care and also enable families to be a bit protected from this enormous challenge of a cliff edge where they lose all their resources. I think we also need to see in that workforce plan some really clear signals that social care staff are doing exactly the same types of roles that the NHS staff are doing, and I want them to be paid properly and given the respect they deserve, because during this pandemic they have proved themselves to be absolutely fantastic and they are an essential part of our national infrastructure. And we need a Prime Minister who gives us our 1948 moment in social care and says this is the moment when we deliver a system that will last into the next century.
And that involves a lot of money. I mean, should that be a penny on our income tax, a penny on national insurance? Have you thought that far, or do you think that's up to the politicians?
Well, my view is it's up to the politicians. They're elected to make the decisions. I think what they have to do, though, is communicate much more clearly what social care does. I think we should also recognise that there is this link to the NHS. So I do think we should look at a whole range of different options. And the other thing I would say is on the funding side, I don't think we should have a one-size-fits-all approach. I think the more approaches we have, the more choice we give to citizens, the earlier they're able to make provisions for their long-term care, then that will encourage people to plan for the future.
What is social care?
Well, social care is that thing which is about people who have particular needs being given a life. And I want to say, in my revisioning of social care, I want to move away from this notion of people having services. Actually, services are what sustain people, but actually people want to have a life. And we all have various bits of our lives where we get support in order for us to live well. And we should see social care in that way as well.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, I think things like, for example, I want an integration of things like the transport system with the social care system, with the housing system. It's no good delivering social care to people who've got a housing crisis. It's no good talking about people being isolated and exempt from the normal activities of society when they live in an area where there's no transport. So I think this has to be a broad approach to social care that looks at every aspect of making people live well. And then social care is one very important part of that, but it needs to be connected. And I think part of the challenge is that in the past we've seen all these things in silos, and if we saw them as a collective approach, we'd be able to use resources in more effective ways.
I mean, what you've just described there, that integrated approach, will cost an absolute fortune. That's not a reason to not do it. But what you're talking about, if I've understood you correctly, Mr. Green, is, let's say, for example, somebody they're 80 and they've had a stroke, and they find it very difficult to use one side of their body. They can't really stand up because the right leg doesn't work. But cognitively, they're absolutely spot on. They're totally compos mentis. They're the sort of people who still need a life, who need someone to help them wash, dress, need to turn them in the night, need to still go out and have activities. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about that, but I'm also reminding you that we're now in an increasingly technological age, and I think one of the things we have not done effectively is embrace technology. Some of the things that people will need will be able to be delivered quite reasonably priced through new technologies.
Like what, for example?
Well, for example, I've seen some great examples of people who might have problems with mobility, and then when they get out of their bed, a very cheap system of pulleys that will help them to get to the bathroom. Some people who might have cognitive problems, getting lights that will give them a tunnel of light to their bathroom in the night. A pressure pad that tells somebody that somebody hasn't put the kettle on at 8 o'clock, which is their normal practice. They might be living with dementia but in their own home, and that will alert their carer that something is not right, and then they can contact them and try and deliver an appropriate response. So I think we should think creatively and think outside the box on this.
Well, thank you very much for your thoughts and your insight. Really interesting. Let's see what happens today. Thank you, Martin Green, Chief Executive of Care England. And do stay with us on